Hi everyone, welcome back to MEG Marine. We're going to continue our work on our Silverton Sedan 362. Our goal today is to finalize the installation of our 12 volt battery banks. So this boat originally was designed to have two battery banks, one battery for each engine, which is used for starting. That same battery also powered half of the 12 volt electrical systems in the boat. And so we're going to pretty much go back with that same design. The only difference is we're going to use two batteries for each bank to give us a little more capacity on the 12 volt side. And because the previous owner had already bought the batteries, it was pretty simple and cheap and easy to double the size of the battery banks. One of the problems that we were facing is the wood that was installed originally in the boat underneath the battery banks is rotten, and so I've cut a new piece of plywood. We're going to install that new piece of plywood and then finalize the location of the batteries, get them mounted, and we're also going to attempt to get the charging system set up and working the way that it's supposed to. The boat came with a 3-bank 30 amp battery charger, and it wasn't working when I bought the boat because it wasn't connected to anything. And so we bought some supplies. We're gonna have to make some new cables, install some new circuit breakers, and see if we can get the chargers working to the two battery banks. So yeah, so let's get started. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna try to replace that wooden floor for the battery banks. That's pretty key to what we're gonna try to do today. We need to get that floor in place for pretty much everything else we're gonna do. So let's go get started on that. All right, so here's kind of what we're dealing with on this rotten wood. This is the original platform for the batteries, and these are the original batteries, or not the original batteries, but this is where the batteries go. When I got the boat, there was only one battery in place, so only half of the 12 volt system worked. We've got the second battery installed, and the 12 volt system is now working like it should. But this wood is obviously rotten, and we need to replace it. And so it was originally covered with a rubber mat. Hopefully you can kind of see that rubber mat up there. And I cut the mat off and took it home and used it as a template to cut a new piece of plywood. And so we're going to attempt to cut this plywood right across there where the vinyl is cut and lay in a new piece of plywood. To do that, I got to get the batteries out of there, and we're also going to install some new circuit breakers. So there's a double circuit breaker box right there that was used for the charging circuits. One circuit for each breaker. We actually need 3 circuits now, and so I'm going to install 3 new breakers as well as a ground bus bar. So first thing I need to do is get these batteries out of here, and then we'll probably mount the breakers and the bus bar to get that work done before we have to put the batteries back in, and then we'll get started replacing this wood. So give me a minute to get some of that cleaned up, and we'll get back on this. Okay, so I've got the area cleared out a little bit, and I've mounted my 3 breakers right there, and my bus bar, my negative bus bar. So the cables from the charger, the 3 legs of the charger, all the negatives will tie together on the bus bar, and then each positive lead will go to a separate breaker. And one breaker will go to the port start battery, one to the starboard start battery, and one's going to go to a battery bank that I'm going to use to power an inverter to give me some 110 volt power when I'm away from the dock. With everything removed, you can really start to see how rotten this piece of wood was. There's almost nothing left over here. And so the next thing I have to do is I have to lay the new one in place, and I have to mark where I'm going to cut this board. You would think I'm going to cut it right at the edge of the vinyl, but I elected to offset the cuts a little bit in the hopes that the vinyl seam, or the vinyl is going to cover up the seam, because I know I'm not going to be able to get this cut to be perfect. And so I think it'll be better looking if I can offset the cut a little bit and let the vinyl cover the wood joint. And so anyway, I'm going to try to lay the other piece in here and see if we can mark where I need to cut, and then we'll see if we can get it cut. All right, so with a little playing around, I was able to get the replacement board in and mark a line. And so now I'm going to attempt to use this oscillating cut tool to cut along that line and see if I can get this rotten piece of wood out of here. So wish me luck. All right, so that went a little better than expected. So there's our fresh cut edge. I was a little nervous because I wasn't 100% sure what was underneath the board, but it looks like it's just hollow space, which is good. So yeah, we just need to put our new board in place. It gets screwed down to this bulkhead here, or that stringer, and these two bulkheads. And that's where the original was screwed down. So we'll screw the new one down in its place, and hopefully we'll end up with a good solid platform for our battery. So let me get that done, and then I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so the new battery tray is in place, and it looks okay, but I made a mistake, unfortunately. I made the new piece out of 3/4 inch womanized plywood, and it looks like the original is probably at least 1 inch plywood, and so the new piece is thinner than the original piece, so it doesn't quite line up here at the seam. And so I'm gonna have to make some 1/4 inch shims to put underneath the new piece, maybe down the edge and on the bulkheads here, to shim it up to the same height as the original board. I don't think that's like a critical error, just an oversight on my part. I don't know that I could have gotten 1 inch plywood anyway, but I'll make some 1/4 inch shims and we'll shim it up, and then we'll bolt it down permanently. But for now, I'm going to move forward with coming up with some permanent mounting for the start batteries. So that's the next step in this. So I'm going to get the batteries put in place, and we're going to start laying out some retainers for those. All right, so here's kind of the plan for the batteries. There's going to be 4 batteries. These two are going to be in parallel and used for start for 1 engine and for half of the power panel. And then these two are going to be connected in parallel and be used for start for the other engine and the other half of the patch panel. And I'm going to put them in place with these cleats that I've made, and use nylon straps to strap them into place, to secure them into place. If you remember the original picture, the batteries were just kind of randomly scattered in this compartment, and I want to do a little better job than that. So I'm going to screw some of these cleats down and get these batteries secured, and then I'll show you what that looks like when I get done. All right, so that came out pretty well, actually. I'm happy with that. There's my cleat on this side, got a cleat on that side, cleats at the back, cleats in between the batteries, and a cleat at the front. And so the batteries are nice and secure now, and I got 4 of them in place. The next thing I need to do is install some battery straps. So there's a couple of hook loops that go on these cleats, and then the straps will come up over the batteries and hold them in place. So I'm going to work on putting those on it, and I'll show you what that looks like when that's done. Alright, so the strap installation is complete for both sets of batteries. Got stainless steel buckles. And so yeah, I'm happy with the way this turned out. This is looking really, really good. I still have to take all of this apart and shim the new board so that it matches the thickness of the old board, and permanently mount it to the boat. And I'm also, before you beat me up about these unfinished cleats, I'll take those off. Today was kind of a trial fit, make sure everything was going to work. I'll take those off and paint them, at least, to seal them and protect them from damage. But yeah, I'm happy with the way this came out. I think it looks good. I need to connect up some cables. I don't have, I bought some supplies to terminate those cables and connect them to the breakers, but I bought the wrong size, and so I'm gonna have to buy the right size, so I can't complete that today, but I will clean up the connections to the batteries. The original battery cables have a mixture of different types of cable ends on them, and I bought new ends that are going to go on these terminals here with the wing nuts, and so I'm going to work on getting those installed, and yeah, that'll be a good probably a good place to stop this project for today. So let me work on that, and I'll come back and show you how that looks. Alright, so I'm going to attempt to show you how I'm terminating these cables. As you can see, these terminations on the cables right now are in pretty poor shape. So I'm going to put on some new ones. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this cable off on a big pair of wire cutters. Right in between the batteries. I'll fish that out later. Alright, and so with the end cut off, I need to strip this wire back a little bit. No real science to this part as far as I know, just trim it back far enough, I guess. Alright. And so with that trimmed back, I'm going to take a pre-cut piece of heat shrink tubing, put that over the cable, and then this is a 1/0 lug with a 3/8 hole in it, and so that's what I want to put on this cable. And I bought this hydraulic crimper tool, which works really well. First time I've used one of these, but I've kind of learned that it's best to pre-stage the terminal in the tool before trying to get it all together. Alright, and then once you have it in place, trying to keep any loose strands from coming out. Alright, once you have it in place, you just keep cranking on the tool. Until it won't crank anymore. And then it has a knob here to release it, kind of like letting a jack down. Alright, and then once that's all done, we're going to use a lighter and shrink this heat shrink. I didn't think this heat shrink would shrink that much, but it has. So let's get that started. I wish I had a heat gun here instead of a lighter, but this is all I got, so I got to work with what I got. One of the problems with working on a boat, I find, no matter how much you plan, when you get here you've always forgotten something, and so you have to improvise a little bit. So yeah, that shrinks down pretty nice. And so yeah, that's a positive terminal right there. That one's going to go on this battery right here. I'm not sure if you can see that. I think you can. All right. So that's one. So yeah, like I said, I've got the two negative terminals done, one positive. I got one more positive to go, and then we'll be done with battery termination. So I'll go back and show you that when I'm done. Alright, after making a few more battery cables, I think my battery bank is in pretty good shape. I've got my tie cables from negative to negative, positive to positive, tying my two batteries together into a single bank, and I've got my cables running to the engines, made with new terminals. Batteries are secured in place with straps and cleats. I think we're in really good shape here. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I still got to do some work on the charge cables. I didn't get the right size terminals, so I got to get some new terminals and run the charge cables, and then we'll be in good shape, I think. So yeah, I think this came out well. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Watch my channel. There'll be more videos coming out as I make more repairs on this boat. And yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.